Hello, my name is Becca, and this is my channel, ALifeLearned. Today, I'm sharing a day in my life to show what it's like for someone on disability assistance here in Canada as part of the Life in a Day 2020 film project. To start off, this is how most of my mornings go, as I basically always find it very difficult to get myself going each day. I'm always greeted by pain and anxiety the moment I gain consciousness, so I tend to kind of lay there for a while and struggle. And one of the first things I do in the morning, which I had my camera off to record, was plug in my computer because I leave things unplugged that I don't use, as was part of my active green pledge. And I also turned on my internet. Now, the challenge is breakfast. So the thing about my disabilities is they're invisible. I don't readily appear disabled. I have severe depression and anxiety with my complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and I have fibromyalgia. So that's a big contributor to my sleep issues. I wake up late every day, and it's not because I don't go to bed at a reasonable time, it's because I just don't sleep during the night. And it makes me constantly tired. I just live feeling tired. And one of the big things with my depression that I really struggle with is eating right. ODSP's lack of reasonable assistance also doesn't make that super easy. But I'm a stockpiler, so I figure it out. But a lot of the time I will have a whole day full of just eating cereal, Crispix, because I just can't be bothered to cook anything. Luckily though, today's a good day. So we're gonna make scrambled eggs. One thing that's important to keep in mind is, in many ways, I am a really lucky recipient of ODSP. I got in a lot of lucky situations, such as, well, you could call it lucky. When I was in the shelter after my abuse, I got put on the emergency list for housing. So that started me off really well initially. And I made the stupid mistake of leaving housing because when I reported my abuser, he made bail and they put a restraining order on him, but he still would come around. Anybody would let anybody into the building even though it was secured entry. So I didn't feel safe. So all in all, I left housing. Regretting it a lot now because I pay like 76% of my income on my rent. And this place is a real shithole. I'm not even joking. I'll show you some clips in a bit of the so-called maintenance within this building. Let me just add to that my landlord thinks he's amazing. And we kind of get in disagreements on a regular basis because I am a very forward person. I might be disabled and I might have extreme anxiety, but I've been through so much discrimination in my life, both as a woman and as someone who's always been poor, and I don't really stand for it anymore. I will be shaking, terrified, anxious, but I will still confront you if you treat me like shit and disrespect me to an extreme. Like, I can walk away from stupid people, but this is my landlord who's trying to tell me he's so amazing as he doesn't take care of the property. I drop things often. That's part of my fibro as well. It leads to a lot of broken glasses. A good example of this was actually, if you look in my cupboards, you can see that I have a very mixed match set of bowls. That is because I break bowls and ceramics and anything breakable by dropping it, because I just kind of suddenly lose feeling in my hands sometimes. It's a really expensive thing to happen for someone who lives on assistance and can't afford basic things like replacing their shoes. I think one of the reasons that I figure out my food in general better than most people on ODSP is because, one, I live off my credit. Not advisable, but when they don't give you enough, what are you supposed to do? And two, I have a little bit of a complex or obsession with being sure that I have food. As a child, I grew up poor, and it's not like we ever had like an empty fridge, but there was just a lot of memories of like scraps and not much to eat and feeling deprived. So it led to this obsession with making sure that I had food. So there's been a couple times that I've gotten very fortunate and I was awarded chunks of money from the Criminal Compensation Board as a result of being molested when I was a child from like 6 till 9 or 10. And then another case, I was awarded for being raped and beaten for 6 years of my life. Too bad they didn't care to consider the trauma of the courts as well, because that had a similar or worse effect. But anyway, these situations left me in a unique position as someone on assistance where I had a chunk of money, like thousands of dollars. And so that's one of the reasons I have such a nice camera for my channel. The first chunk I used to help myself move because I was living with my partner at the time and things really weren't working. And you can't afford to move when you're living on assistance. At that time I hadn't even been approved for ODSP, so I was living off of Ontario Works or welfare, which is not livable at all. And so that first chunk of compensation, a good chunk of it went to just moving costs, first and last month's rent, moving truck, etc. As well as my camera equipment. I spent most of it actually trying to update my channel, because for a while there I thought, you know, I'm gonna make my channel an income maybe, like my channel will be a way to make a difference in the world and get by and support myself. But I wasn't growing fast enough and my life was falling apart because I was still in the court process. So like my mental health was just continuing to spiral down. So I didn't have the energy to put into a channel to get it to grow. And I don't agree with AdSense because I want to see a world where people don't manipulate each other on a regular basis. And that's all ads are, is manipulation. So my only other option was Patreon, and with a little over 2,000 subs, let's be real, Patreon is, it's just probably not sustainable. So with the second chunk, what I did was, well, I spread it out. I helped make living on assistance livable by spreading it out for like a few years. But in that same way, I also stockpiled on food a bit so that I'm kind of always a little bit ahead. So it's still really hard to manage, but because I got myself ahead when I had that chunk of money, it sort of managed to make things kind of livable. I also prioritize my food. So that means a lot of other things that are basic needs that need to get covered just don't. Anyway, moving on with my day, I then bring my breakfast to the only place I have to eat. Then I throw something on Netflix, because I'm used to watching things while I eat. And I try my best not to forget my meds. They sit on my desk because otherwise I would forget. These are antidepressants. I used to be on anti-anxieties. They all have annoying side effects though, so I only take one psychosomatic drug at a time. I kind of like came to find that I had a paranoid fear of the side effects of medication. I pushed through it though, and I tried anti-anxieties so that I could start school again, and it went okay. It helped me get my stuff under control, I felt. So then once I felt it was reasonably under control that I could like go out in public, not meaning I don't have anxiety attacks anymore, I just can do things now when I was literally debilitated before. I asked to switch to antidepressants because I've been really struggling with that. So I switched over last August or September. I wanted to get off of them this summer because I just don't like being on them in general, but I have to admit that they have helped. They have made a difference in my day-to-day. I just had like a shadow over me of depression, regardless of anything else influencing it. So went on the meds. They're like horse pills. They're huge and they're hard to swallow, which I hate, but they have been helping. And I figured I shouldn't get off of them this summer because I haven't quite been on them for a full year. And one of my therapists explained to me that one of the things about medical therapy, which is why it's so recommended, is because it can help the brain change the way it's working chemically. In my case, I spent most of my life depressed and down and just really unhappy. It's kind of the mode that my brain knows, and thus the parts of my brain that are supposed to produce serotonin and positive emotions is probably less functional than it should be. And then the part of my brain that produces cortisol, which is the stress hormone, is probably working way too hard and way too well. So all that in mind, I've said this in vlogs I've made before. I was like, okay, I will take an antidepressant and try to get my brain in the mode of not being depressed chemically. So I'm going to do that for a full year, and then after I finish school next year, both 2 semesters, then the summer after I plan on getting off of them, because I think I can manage on my own once I get my brain in a different state. But anyway, so yeah, the next part of my day is just sitting at my desk where I vlog and do literally everything else, because I have no kitchen table, no space for a kitchen table, only 2 extra chairs that I have for guests now and then, and no living room space whatsoever. It's the only thing I could find when I was moving, and I moved just before the huge rent spike, so that's the only reason I can afford to live on my own. I know a lot of people would think that's spoiled or excessive, but one thing a lot of people don't realize is when you have mental health issues that are chronic and that stem from your childhood and a lot of different instances of trauma, living with other people can really complicate that and make your mental health a lot worse. Not any fault of those people, it's just that, you know, there's things that have to be worked around when you live with people. And that is a lot more challenging when you have mental health issues. I've tried it, and it really messed with my mental health. I thus live alone to try and keep myself as stable as possible while I continue through my schooling. This is in the schooling calendar, in hopes that I will come out with some kind of diploma that will help me employ myself within the limits of my disability, because it looks like one way or another I'll only be able to work part-time, and let's be real, a part-time minimum wage job is never gonna get me off of ODSP. But I like to think that if I can find something where I can somewhat structure my own schedule to my sleeping issues, then I can work a bit more than part-time, maybe even almost full-time, working around my sleeping and working on low-impact things, specifically doing research for social work. That's my hope anyways. May is a sweet little 5-month-old kitty that I got from Sarnia because I was kind of ready to kill myself from loneliness. I was dealing with serious depression, even being on antidepressants, and pets, they just make a huge difference for that. I hadn't gotten a pet yet because I didn't believe in getting one that I couldn't afford to vet. It's really important to me that, you know, she have good health care. It seems irresponsible to take her on just because I need her, but my partner said that he would help with any emergency vet bills. So I got lucky and I got her, and she's a real lifesaver, no doubt. Something worth pointing out, just so there's no misconceptions, is just how many things in my apartment have been given to me or donated, or I found them on the side of the road. So, toaster oven given to me, or I found it in an apartment, toaster given to me, all those utensils given to me, knife set given to me. Salt shakers used to be my aunt's, got it from my nana. Found that on the side of the road, found that on the side of the road. That shelf was actually bought. That shelf was from Goodwill. Microwave given to me by a charity. Stand found in an apartment that I lived in. Screen given to me. Table found on the side of the road. Shelf I bought from a friend. Shelf that I just recently found beside a dumpster. Shelf that I found 2 days ago on the side of the road. Goodwill. Found at a dumpster. I'm talking about the basket. My nana gave me those containers. Found on the side of the road. That is one of the few things I bought with my compensation money, as well as like my camera stuff. Bought from a friend, and my PC was also one of the few things that I bought for myself with my compensation money. Found on the side of the road. And then when we enter the bedroom, the bed is also one of the few things I bought for myself with my compensation money. So it's actually new, and thank God, because I need a quality bed to sleep. Found on the side of the road. Found on the side of the road. Given to me. Found on the side of the road. Hi. So yeah, all in all, just don't want there to be any misconceptions. I have stuff, and I've been able to hold on to it, but a lot of it has been charity and given to me or found on the side of the road. So the next part of my day basically consists of anxiety management. As I mentioned, I went off anti-anxiety meds, but what I use to manage my anxiety now is medical cannabis. So I sit here in my bathroom because I don't like the smell of smoke in my stuff. And I also have, you know, a bit of respect for my neighbors. I don't want them to have to deal with the smell too much. But since getting May, my little kitten, she'll bat at the door and scratch and complain if I close it. So usually what I do is I'll just leave it open like a foot so that she can still get in. But I used to just shut the door to contain the smoke because the idea was for the bathroom fan to vent it. It's not the most comfortable situation, but I've been doing this, unfortunately, cannabis since I was 13, regularly since I was 14, and I regret that since learning the impacts that it has on brain development. But you can't go back, right? I was a very troubled child, and I was a very traumatized child, and so that's the way I was trying to deal with the trauma that I was going through. I smoked cigarettes when I was younger too, because everyone in my family did. Seems to be a poverty thing, even though it's really expensive. But when I got with my abuser, he would berate me about my cigarette smoking quite a bit, although he himself was a cannabis smoker. So in an outrage burst in the middle of one of our fights about something else, I threw my last pack of cigarettes out and said, fine, I quit, because he got me all worked up about it. And he's like, all right, if you're serious, if you're actually gonna quit, I will give you 1 joint tonight of cannabis as a reward. And other than the nights when I wasn't allowed to eat, drink, smoke, or do anything because we were in the middle of a fight, and if I did anything, well then I wasn't paying attention to the fight. He basically kept that promise. So from 14 onward, I smoked roughly 1/2 gram a day. Not too proud of it. But again, it helped me manage my trauma at the time. So it's something I'm very familiar with, and in my early 20s, I actually genuinely believed that I was only doing it recreationally, funny enough. And it was only once I got into my court trials and being out of school, out of work, just like feeling like a lump, which was kind of when I started my channel, because I wanted to contribute to society, that it finally occurred to me that I was using it medicinally. I was using it to help manage my symptoms more than anything. But I would argue that there's probably a lot of recipients on social assistance who consume cannabis, and I don't think it's something reasonable to shame anyone for, because they could be turning to much worse things to try and deal with their stress and the trauma that being in poverty is. Google it. Being impoverished is traumatic. It is not good for the brain. And so when you compare other drugs to cannabis and the side effects and everything, you gotta weigh the evils sometimes. But yeah, so this is somewhat shameful considering the way society looks at it, and a somewhat boring part of the beginning of my day. The big trouble being on ODSP is it is significantly more expensive, and it is not covered by benefits at all. But this is just the life of someone who does not have enough money to manage their basic needs. And yes, this cannabis is a part of my basic need, because if I didn't consume it, my sleep would be way worse. I wouldn't be able to go outside, and my pain would be 10 times worse because my tension would be up. It treats a lot of different symptoms. It makes sense to me to respect the symptoms that it's treating, rather than just hanging on to wrong historical shaming among society that it is this illicit drug. Do some research. It was never made illegal because it was harmful. It was made illegal because it threatened the hemp industry. A little tidbit there for you. So anyway, yeah, I sit here and I smoke my bowls. This is how I get my tension down to start my day. And then there's May. She really likes to join me. Hey, I sit in my lap and let me pet her. And this is a really good example of how she's good for my mental health, because she gives me something to love, and she gives me something that loves me back. So once I got my face wash. Another opportunity to be green, I used reusable face pads and brushed my teeth. Now I do stretches. This hasn't exactly been a regular part of my routine because depression, and as you can see, very limited space. But I make it work, and then I don't know, I do my stretches because it helps with fibro, obviously. But this is another good example of how the impoverished live, in the sense that I have to do this in the doorway of my bedroom because I don't have space anywhere else to do it. Right? This is what I have. And in many ways I realize that I'm really fortunate to have this space, especially with the inflation today. But it's actually in the Charter of Human Rights that people have a right to basic shelter. And, you know, though I don't have a living room, this is definitely basic living. And the frustrating and sad part is there are many people on ODSP right now and welfare, Ontario Works or other types of welfare throughout the country that can't even afford this because the inflation rate, since things have changed recently, especially with COVID, like COVID has really made things that much more expensive lately. I'm going to share some prices and clips of the COVID changes to share with you guys like what it's like in London, Ontario, specifically where they've mandated masks. So originally I had been thinking to go for a grocery shop to show just how incredibly difficult that is for someone both on disability, because you have to take the bus unless you're somehow fortunate enough to have a car before being on disability, and also for someone with fibro because the pain is in my arms, so it hurts a lot. But then I looked at my bank account. The unfortunate catch about that overdraft there is that if I use it, they'll ding me a huge fee that I can't afford because I can't afford anything anyways. So I have all of $4 till the end of the month, and hence the not going grocery shopping. I don't want to make my debt even worse. I'll just have to stick with non-perishables. That's another thing about being on ODSP is that you often have to rely on non-perishables and things that aren't the best for your health. There's not a whole lot of access to fresh food. Fruit is quite the luxury to me, although I do try to have bananas when I can because they're kind of affordable still, but a lot of fruits and vegetables can be pretty expensive. I do have some frozen, which is even more nutritious in some ways because they're flash frozen, but it's also good for the diet to have fresh food, so that's just another difficulty with ODSP and living on assistance. And looking at the temperature today, it looks like I'm gonna have to dress minimal because I'm going to be sweating buckets, and I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of London and the downtown area because that's where I live, and then we're gonna go pick up a prescription of mine because my antidepressants have been filled, and so I need to go get that. And though it is a Saturday, this is actually how most days are for me right now, where I'm just kind of taking care of life chores more than anything. I'm not working. I try to spend the summers recouping from how drained I get during the semester because I really put a lot into my schooling, trying to get high grades to help with scholarships and to help with my future goals. So with that, I tend to spend my summers volunteering. But unfortunately this summer, first they didn't have volunteering open, of course, because of COVID, and now I'm just really apprehensive about going out and trying to find new volunteering opportunities with cases still existing. Like once Canada got into a situation where we had 0 cases for a few weeks and we were starting to look like New Zealand was for a while, then I think I'd feel more comfortable going out and participating in society more and volunteering. I'm just really scared to get the virus. I've seen some scary articles about the effects on the body even once you've healed. Like they found clots in people's lungs, they found brain damage, they found heart damage. So it's not something I want to play around with. So there's a little bit of guilt there because I feel like I should be spending my time volunteering, but I am trying to still contribute in the sense of my channel when I can, and in the meantime just focusing on recouping so I can do my best in my school next semester and eventually contribute to society with that degree I'm working towards. We're gonna head out soon to get my prescription, but I'm gonna share a little bit of the building with you and the kind of conditions that people on disability and assistance have to live in. And yes, there are tenancy laws that say it's not supposed to be this way, but as many of you might know, the tenancy board isn't functioning right now because of COVID, and it's a long wait and a lot of fighting and bullshit in order to get landlords to actually do what they're supposed to. And I actually reported my landlord at one point, but I couldn't go to the tribunal because I was busy with school. And they get a lot of people in that way. Apparently no one else in this building except me complains about the lack of maintenance, and so the landlord likes to point out that it's just me complaining, which means it obviously is only my problem. Anyway, heading out, I kind of want to wear shoes a lot of the time because my sandals can hurt my feet, but this is what I'm dealing with in terms of shoes. I don't have the money to replace them. And these were $100, can you believe that? They got that way within less than a year. I've had them for 2 years because it's all I've had, and I still don't know how I'm gonna replace them. So anyways, sandals, that's what I'll be wearing now. Let's check out the building. Here we come to Exhibit A. I've told him 1,000 times that this door is broken. It's supposed to be secured entry. Very broken door. Not secured entry. Makes me feel super unsafe, because my abuser has now been released from jail. Example number 2 is the lawn. I recently complained that he hadn't been doing landscaping because I literally couldn't get through this path due to the bushes overgrowing it. So he responds to me and says, "Are these the bushes you're talking about?" I'm like, "Well, do you think they should be left that way?" And so he apparently trimmed them, but then left the lawn completely untouched. Took him over a year to finish painting the building, and up there is still like a few feet of unpainted. I told him over a month ago. He just doesn't care. Also, that's the front door. Thankfully the secured entry does work, but that's kind of sketchy. So this is how I tend to go about when I go outside. As you can see, I only have one headphone in because I don't like being unaware of my surroundings. PTSD, also safety. And I'm really paranoid of the sun, so I walk around with a parasol. Anyway, I decided to take the long way to get my prescription so I could take some shots of the cool stuff downtown to share with you guys. Here's my favorite used bookstore, right across from the library. Of course, they have their dollar bins out, so I gotta search them. One of the ways they're trying to keep social distancing is they have this little sign, 1 person per cart. Try and keep people separate. Here's a little London project I am very proud to share. It is something that was run by a local company, Trapdoor Escape Rooms. And sadly, people have stolen from it a few times, so they had to add screws to keep things in. But because they needed replacements, I got to participate. That one's mine. I did it. It's one of my favorite things about COVID in London is that everybody came together to do this really cool art project, despite the disappointment that people had stolen from it. Another precaution is lines to tell people to stay 6 feet apart when lining up for a place. Another change is there are patios filling the sidewalks everywhere for all the restaurants because they changed the regulations so that they could throw them up for phase 2 of our reopening. So there are a jillion more patios out blocking the sidewalks than there used to be. Another thing, boarded up windows. Arrows to encourage us to only go one way so we don't interact with people in opposite directions. Hi! Yeah, so I should be okay. Like, I assume you'll get it by then. Well, sorry for misreading email. I wasn't able to get my prescription, but I thought I'd share a few of the prices that those on assistance are facing trying to feed themselves. I'm back home now. I ran out of memory card while I was at the pharmacy, but that was another great example of a fibromyalgia symptom. I get brain fog quite a bit, and sometimes I have to reread things several times to actually acknowledge and get it into my head when I'm reading. And so it seems that when I got a notification email that I thought was for a prescription pickup, it was actually to let me know that I needed to get more refills. So I enjoyed sharing with you guys a bit of London, taking the walk to the pharmacy, but now I'm exhausted. I guess for most people I feel like I just did like a 4-hour workout. And it's only 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't get up until like nearly noon. It was like maybe 11:45 because my sleep is so poor. And my legs are now really sore. Because I walked more than I usually would to try and get those shots. And wearing my sandals, my feet are now raw as well. And that's just kind of both a little bit a symptom of just having fibromyalgia and also just the reality of living on disability. Many of us don't have good footwear to walk, and many of us don't have a choice but to walk wherever we go or to take public transit, which is currently deemed the COVID mobile, as many of you might know, because public transit is a really easy way to catch COVID. They're still keeping it free and trying to minimize interactions with the bus drivers, but people on the bus don't really practice social distancing. But yeah, considering the fact that I am quite drained for the day, my remainder of July 25th, 2020 is just going to be spent going through the clips that I've gotten so far and starting to edit together my little contribution. On the note of that, actually, it just occurred to me that this is a good opportunity to answer some of the questions that they posed for the Life in a Day documentary. One of the things that they wanted us to answer is, what do you fear? Or what are you afraid of? And talking about my fibro symptoms and the way they impact my life and disability, I think my biggest fear is losing my ability to use my body before being able to have the impact on the world that I want to, before being able to make any kind of real difference and finally feel like I'm not a leech on the system. I've been traumatized most of my life, and so I haven't had a lot of opportunities to actually contribute to the system and contribute to the taxes that everybody likes to shame me for living off of by being on disability. But to make it clear, I don't want to be disabled. I would give quite a bit to have my able-bodied back. The last time I remember being fully able-bodied, I was a young teenager. And so I guess that's the thing I'm most afraid of, is that my fibro causes me to fall apart before I can really be what I consider a worthy and productive person within the world. That leads into their next question, actually, which is, what would you like to change, either about the world or your own life? And so both in those ways, in my own life, I want to change my financial situation. I want to change my poverty, my deprivation, and my discrimination. I have been discriminated against as someone who's impoverished, again, my whole life. Say it over and over. And I would really like to see that change. In that sense, I'd like to see worldwide that people don't discriminate based on socioeconomic status. I'd love to see a world where there's some kind of universal basic income, universal providing of resources to people so that people don't have to waste their life away just trying to have a roof over their head and food in their stomach, so that they can actually use their minds and their bodies and their creativity to produce and create the way humans are capable of. These are things that a lot of us can't do because we're too busy trying to subsist and get by. And so I'd love to see my life change, where I'm in a better socioeconomic position, where I'm in a better mental health state, and just in a better position in my life to help more people. Because my goal is to become a social worker and to do social work research that leads to some genuine change in the way that the lesser fortunate are treated in Canada and in the world. And what I'd like to see worldwide is a change in compassion. And that's not to say that people are without. There are lots of compassionate people in the world, but there's also a really large number of people who find it easier to condemn and to shame and belittle and condescend anyone who has done anything that they consider wrong. So all in all, I would just like to see a world filled with more compassion, more understanding of everyone's lives, and the fact that we're all living here on the same world. We're all trying our best. Some of us are doing better than others, but we all deserve the same amount of compassion. And then that leads into the other question they asked, which is, what do I love? And in that sense, I love seeing people being compassionate. I love the cute little clever things that can come out of people's imaginations when they realize that someone needs help and they have the ability to offer it. Some of the families that were just sitting on the side of the road with tons and tons of packages of toilet paper to offer to others for free when the pandemic first started, and there was huge surges of people buying them and then many people going without. That's just such a cute, clever way of being compassionate to others, and I think that's my favorite thing in the world. Is I love to see other people be compassionate and connect with others and just enjoy each other for the sake of enjoyment. Why not, eh? And so, on with the editing. This is basically the rest of my day now, just trying to get this together, but I reread the instructions. They want raw footage for the documentary that I was participating in, so I'm just going to submit that tomorrow no matter what. I might not have this finished until next Sunday because it looks like it's going to be a lot of editing, but one way or another, I'm hoping that you guys got somewhat of a different idea of the way that people on disability live now. There are a lot of different people with different disabilities and different abilities within that, and so just it's really important to keep an open mind, but also to realize that no matter what, we are all suffering because the way the system is currently set up is that we are in no way able to properly provide for our basic needs. So just a thing to take away from this video. I just wanted to finish off by sharing that with my sleep problems, I have made a lot of efforts to try and overcome anything that might be causing a barrier. So I now always leave my phone on my desk at night. I don't play with electronics or look at screens for the last 45 minutes to an hour when I'm sleeping. I don't know if you noticed from the beginning of the video, but I have a very, very dark bedroom. I have blacked out my windows as a way to try and deal with the way that light affects the melanin and wakes people up. I'm very sensitive to light. I have also got a big industrial fan that I sleep with to tune out the noises of like the thin walls. And every night I read before I go to bed to calm my mind or to take my mind off of things that are constantly causing me anxiety and stress and get my mental health going, and to keep my mind busy at the same time so that I'm not bored with the fact that I can't play with my phone before bed. And then I just smoke a bowl because that helps me fall asleep. Cannabis is incredibly helpful for different forms of insomnia. My biggest problem though is that cannabis helps me fall asleep, but it doesn't really help me stay asleep because it doesn't stay in my system long enough because I've been smoking for so long, 16 years. So I have a sleep study coming up this September to figure out why I can't sleep. I've pushed past my pharmacophobia even to try a lot of different medications to try and sleep, and just nothing seems to make a difference in terms of helping me stay asleep for a good chunk. I think the longest I slept in the last 5 years maybe is 4 hours at one time. And I realize some people are okay living like that, especially as you get older you need less sleep, but I would give a lot of things for a good 8 hours of sleep. So yeah, that's how I finish off my day, and sometimes it leads to me just laying there in bed and not falling asleep because my arms are in incredible pain. And if you ever thought about when you're laying down, there is no way you can lay your body, like in terms of being vertical, that your arms do not have pressure on them, on some area of your arm. My arms are my source of pain, so it can be quite challenging sometimes. But thankfully my pain hasn't been the main source of insomnia in recent times. It's been more my PTSD, my stress and anxiety. So I guess this is just also a message to those who can't relate but who are learning. There are a lot of people out there with invisible disabilities like mine, and we are suffering quite a bit, but we are trying as well. You know, I'm in school, I'm pushing forward, so just something to keep in mind. So anyway, please do share in the comments anything that you felt about my day and things you think were cool or not so cool. If you have disabilities, please share how your day is similar or different. And by all means, it would be cool if you took a recording of what it's like for a day in your life as someone with disabilities. The more access to such things that people have, the more people will be able to understand. And as always, please do join me again next week or sometime soon, where I try again to share a little something I've learned or experienced in life.
An idea.
An escape.
Ideas are bulletproof.